and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Thank you for joining me for another one of my videos. So today I wanted to talk to you all about how to exceed your own expectations. So I spoke about this on my blog and in my podcast, and all of you said that you wanted a video as well to accompany that. So here it is. This is going to be like a real honest video of a lot throughout my career. I have been left either disappointed or like my expectations hadn't been met, or manifestations as such hadn't happened the way I'd envisioned them, so therefore like it hadn't met my expectation, or whatever the situation. So for me, throughout my couponing career and throughout, you know, this career as well, my spirituality career, you know, mainly my couponing career, I've definitely always like held high expectations on myself, high goals, numbers, figures, the lot. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because, you know, we're taught in the law of attraction to aim big, to dream big, to put those visions, put those goals, put those dreams out there by all means. But what I was doing with that is holding the universe to ransom. I was like, you know, it has to happen this way, it has to happen like this, otherwise I won't be happy, or it has to happen like this, otherwise it's not a manifestation, or it's not gonna make me happy, or whatever my excuse was. So I used to find, like in the earlier days, especially with my work and career, that I would manifest things, but it wouldn't be necessarily as what I envisioned. But you know, looking back, it had to happen like that, exactly like that. So obviously, you know, into this we can obviously play divine timing, we can play, you know, God's plan, the universe's plan, whatever. So, you know, some things just aren't genuinely destined for us, and something slightly different is. So obviously, you know, I factored that into, you know, dealing with things and looking at how I was manifesting to see why my expectations weren't being met. So I would hold a lot of, not pressure, but I guess pressure on myself and the universe for figures, numbers, money, followers, the lot. That was my manifestations. And what I came to realize was that they just weren't being met, and there was such good reason for why they weren't being met, and that was simply because I wasn't in alignment with why I wanted them, or I wasn't in alignment with what that would bring, essentially. So for me, looking back, I understand why I definitely like didn't hit those manifestations or targets or goals as such to the level I had. You know, I hit them well, but not as much as what my expectation was. So I found that a lot of the time my manifestations were being met, but my expectations weren't being met. And I really wanted to challenge this recently, because it's not like I was fed up with it. I was still super grateful for all the stuff the universe has brought me. I was super grateful for, you know, all the wonderful stuff that had come into my life. And, you know, I always just thought, you know, I need to surrender that more. And that was the truth, the cold hard truth of I had to surrender this vision, or this like, you know, really kind of like tight dream or tight grip I had on my dreams, essentially. So the way that I chose to change this time around, and if you can relate to this, if you're a control freak like I was, or, you know, you really struggle to let go, or like I've said, you know, my expectations as such weren't being as met as what I'd like them to in manifestations, like this is for you. So the way that I, you know, changed this around was recently I really wanted to manifest from my divine feminine energy. I knew that this year I really needed to focus on my feminine energy more, to really work into my feminine energy, and to allow myself to balance both. So being good in masculine and good in feminine, because I'm so good at being in the masculine, so good. But obviously I wanted to really allow myself to flow into my feminine energy more and manifest, more importantly, from my feminine energy. Because if we look at law of attraction, if we look at manifesting, it's a very masculine energy. It's a very like, put your goal out there, dream big, go hard, take action, like, you know, force it, control it, boom, and then it's here. It's a very masculine energy. Whereas I was determined to see and, you know, test for myself that I could really successfully manifest from my feminine energy, more importantly. So I've really worked on that. And, you know, to be honest, the intention actually wasn't even there to manifest. It was more of a case of I'd put these hopes or, you know, just thoughts, positive thoughts out there, rather than I want to manifest this. I put more of a positive thought and feeling out there towards these things and just let them flow. So the beginning of this year, I really started to go into my feminine energy more and really like, you know, fill my own cup up again, rest and relax after 18 months of a lot of masculine energy, a lot of birthing, so obviously I was using my feminine energy in bits, but obviously it was quite unbalanced. And obviously I was executing a lot and pushing forward, which is very masculine. So I knew that this was a call for me to rest, a call for my body to rest, and a call for me to really go within and explore and like learn new things and think, hey, like, what should I talk about next? Or what should I work on for book 2? Or what, you know, like I was kind of thinking like, okay, now we've like done that learning stage, we've moved through it, we've like birthed amazing stuff, like what's next for me? So I really settled into that feminine energy of not really having an end goal, of sitting in there, nurturing myself in there, filling my own cup, you know, healing, going in and doing wonderful things, without an end goal, without anything. And what came from that was a lot of inspiration, new ideas, new things to birth, new things to launch, and really exciting things that I want to do this year. So to my surprise, not only did I have loads of inspiration come through, which I didn't expect, because to me that feminine energy felt lazy, unproductive. You know, I was so used to being my masculine, I thought, this can't be good being in my feminine. But I was really shocked that actually when I allowed myself to stop, when I allowed myself to rest, stop, and listen almost to the universe and to myself, these new waves of inspiration came through. Book ideas, project ideas, merchandise ideas, so much came through, and I was like, right. And instead of like just pushing forward and being like birth with these and work, I was like, no, it's okay to hold them in my womb space, it's okay to incubate them. And you know, I was actually told that by my good friend George, who I had a reading with at the beginning of this year, and he was really crucial in this divine feminine work, because he was the one who pushed me and was like, Emma, come on, like, don't ignore it, let's do it. So for me, like, his reading was incredible because it literally gave me so much structure of what I had to work on this year. He didn't give me any predictions, and I was like, thank God, because that's not what I needed, that's not what I wanted. I needed like practical advice as such on what I should be focusing on, what I should be working on, and what was next. So for me, that period was really like incubating those ideas, as he said, and like nurturing them and trusting that with time they're gonna grow even stronger. Like, you don't have to worry that there's a time limit on them, because I always did that in the past. There was always a time limit, I always had to birth it, get it out, do. Whereas this time I've actually like incubated these ideas, worked with them, let them like grow and at their own pace, that when I know through my intuition that it's the right time to action it or birth it or launch it or whatever, you know, I've had that calling and I've had that intuition, and I've noticed that I'm much more calmer and in the flow with it almost by doing that, because I'm not pressuring myself to ridiculous deadlines, I'm not pressuring myself to do anything. So that has been like gold dust for me, really. Gold dust, incubating those ideas, working on them and letting them naturally evolve and flourish, so that at the right time I can say, right, now it's ready to go, essentially. So the two examples I have of how I've exceeded my own expectations is, like I said, really through that period of time, getting into my divine feminine really helped. So two things happened for me, which was actually more things have happened since. So I have more examples, but the two I'm using are my book. So with my book, I had the question from friends, family, Mr. C, God, everybody, of how many do you think you're gonna sell? How many pre-orders have you sold? What have you sold? What's good? What's bad? What makes a bestseller? And to be honest, no one had told me these answers. George, who used to work at Hay House, so this is George Lizos I'm talking about, who I had the reading with, and he's a flipping book expert. So he gave me such amazing tips, which I'm super grateful for, because he just really helped me, you know, from a publisher's side, get an idea on what, you know, I'm meant to be doing here and what's good, what's not good. But obviously that's falling back into the traps of comparison, it's falling into the traps of analytics and data and reports and what you should be achieving, what you think is good. And what I'm really grateful with Sean, my publisher, is that, you know, although he gave me all this incredible information, is he held no expectation of me, literally. And I was like, this is good. This is why I love Sean, because there was no expectations. He was like, you'll sell what you're meant to sell. And I was like, thank God, like what a breath of fresh air. Do you know what I mean? What a breath of fresh air in this day and age to have a brand say to you, you'll sell what you're meant to sell. Like literally not have deadlines or, you know, unreasonable expectations on me. So obviously I knew a rough estimate of what was good to sell? What amount of pre-orders was a good, you know, a good sell, or a good book as such? And then I kind of knew an overall figure of what you should be selling a month and what you should collectively have sold over the 2-year period. So I had those figures in my mind, but obviously, you know, considering my following and stuff, a lot of people are like, Emma, you'll smash that, don't worry. And I was a bit like, I don't know, because although I've had merchandise and obviously I could look at, you know, the sales and figures from my merchandise range, selling a book's much different. One, because it's actually quite a low price point, like items, so more people probably would feel drawn to buying it over, you know, merchandise and stuff. But, you know, my merchandise is all affordable. I really feel that books just are really different. I buy books all day long, literally, and I think most of us do. So a book's quite different because it really is like coaching in a book. It's so much more information than what you would get through merchandise, or, do you know what I mean? Like, it's just someone's life in a book essentially. So you really would get so much more from it. So I was kind of like, I actually don't know how it's gonna go, but I'd read in Rebecca Campbell's book and like in a lot of her work of saying like, you have to drop it as soon as you birth that book. You have to drop this, you have to drop the expectations, you have to drop the ego, or the, you know, the masculine side of having to have good sales or good reviews or anything like that. So I was really conscious of that, and to be honest, I think I just didn't know what to expect. The reporting which our publisher uses is very behind, so I didn't find out pre-order sales until I think 2 weeks into it being live in January. So obviously, bearing in mind it launched for pre-order in November, I didn't know any figures until pretty much solidly about 2-3 weeks into sale in January, so the end of January. So it was obviously like a guessing game. It was like, I don't know how many I'm gonna get, I don't know. So when people are asking me, like, you know, obviously me and my fellow authors from that guy's house, like, you know, we'd researched into what makes a bestseller, like, you know, how many books and stuff, and it was really interesting to talk to Cameron about that because he'd done a lot of research into it. Yeah, it was just really fascinating to learn about the publishing world, and obviously I just thought, well, whatever's meant to sell is gonna sell. Like, I can't control that, I don't want to manifest it. And I think because I was in my feminine energy so much, I was like, you just need to flow with it. Like, let's just see how the pre-order goes, and then, you know, you've got the rest of your life to sell the book. Do you know what I mean? And that's what I had in my head. You have the rest of your life to sell your book. You want sustainability. You want a book that's not just gonna go whew and then nothing. You want a book that's gonna be sustainable and people are gonna love for years to come, not just the first month or pre-order. So I really let it go, and I was like, I don't know what to expect. So for once in my life, I had no expectations because I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what was to come or what the response would be. It was the first time I was doing this. So I let go, had an amazing launch, was just super, super grateful and proud of myself that I had created that book, that I had birthed that book and it had been published. You know, that was the manifestation for me. It was never about numbers. It was never about sales. It was about that book being out in the world. So for me, I just like really took stock of the gratitude for that, for the gratitude for my publisher, the gratitude for all the support I had and all my lovely friends who posted about it when it came out and things like that. I just really looked at the gratitude and was like, you know, the people who need to read it will find it always. You know, books always come to me in the right way. So I just knew that their books would get to the people it was meant to help. And what ended up happening was then 3 weeks later, when we had definitely the pre-order like sales in, and probably a bit of like, I mean, I still don't know to this day how far behind the reporting is, so it could have just been pre-orders, I don't know. So it could be a few weeks behind because obviously it has to like check up with each retailer of how much they've sold. So I still to this day have no idea how far behind it is. I could be saying it's a few weeks and it could be a month, it could be a day behind, I have no idea. So all I know is what figure is on that dashboard essentially when I log in. So at that point, 3 weeks in, I logged in and I was mind blown. We'd had so many problems with Amazon when it launched. So there was quite a few problems with the book essentially. When we put it up for pre-order, Amazon decided to put 2 copies up and then it wasn't merging with the ebook. There was a lot of problems. So I think the actual distribution centre were quite fed up of me and Sean calling up all the time, like being like, is it fixed yet? What's happening? What's happening? So, you know, there was a delay on pre-order. There was, you know, quite a few delays, and I was just like, I can't do anything. It's Amazon's, you know, fault here. They're not ordering in enough stock, you know. And then when it hit midnight on my book launch, obviously it went out of stock. So there was no stock for people to buy on the first day of release. And I was like, what has happened? So then what happened is Waterstones really struggled to get stock, and Barnes & Noble really struggled to get stock to fulfill their pre-orders. So we were like scratching our heads of what's going on here. Like, why is everyone struggling to get stock? They were fulfilling pre-orders, obviously, and quite a lot of people did get their pre-orders, but I was still getting a lot of messages of people saying it's still not here yet, it's saying 3 weeks. I was like, what is happening? So within a week, it all got sorted. Like, stock came in on Amazon, stock came in on Waterstones, stock came in a lot of places, and people were obviously like distributing and like getting their books. But what I then realized was why this happened. So obviously I'm not like all clued up with how the distribution center works, but because I'd obviously launched on the 3rd of January, on the, I think the 2nd of January, they'd only just started up speedy delivery again over Christmas. So from Black Friday to the first week of January, obviously they weren't offering speedy delivery because of Christmas, because of holidays, so things were delayed. So it was probably the time of year I launched the book, so I did learn a lesson there. Do not launch your book on Black Friday or the first week of January, because although it may sound good, distribution don't love it so much. So I did learn a lesson there that I'm going to launch a summer book probably next time. But for me, I was like, okay, that's fine. Everything's sorted. Everyone's getting their books. That's really good. So I logged into the dashboard and was gobsmacked of why this had happened, because they couldn't keep up with demand, like quite clearly from the sales figures that were there. I was like, I think we know why, because maybe they just didn't plan in enough time, or they didn't order in enough time. And obviously with the distribution center being like way behind, it wasn't just my book affected. Quite a few like publishers' books were affected and were out of stock for that week just because they just couldn't keep up. So mixed with the demand of it, I was like, well, that's why people weren't getting it quick, because to my absolute shock, I'd exceeded anything I'd thought, exceeded what George had told me was a good launch. And I was just shocked. I was just absolutely gobsmacked. And even now, you know, it's going up and going up, even like a month, well, nearly 2 months on. In March, it'd be 2 months, won't it? So I'm just gobsmacked, and I'm super, super grateful because I exceeded my own expectation. And I exceeded my own expectation because I had no expectation. The goal was there to get the book published, and I released it. I let it go and I surrendered, and the universe was like, see what happens when you surrender? We can meet you halfway. So another really good example was my summit. So again, the first time I'd done this, the first spiritual event I had done. I've done events before in the past, but this was the first spiritual event. And I had no idea. I was like, are people gonna wanna come? Are they gonna wanna like meet me and like have the day, you know, doing workshops and stuff and doing really cool stuff? And obviously like people probably didn't know what to expect, because it was the first event from me. As like descriptive as I wanted to be, ultimately like now we've got the video and now we've got photos, people will know what to expect next time. And also from people's like feedback and stuff. Yeah, up until, I think we launched the tickets in October, so it was February the event happened. I'm losing my marbles here. It was February when the event happened. I launched the tickets in October and booked it all and planned it all. And by December, obviously I expected sales to drop off because of Christmas and stuff like that, and the holidays, and obviously we still had 2 months to go. And I think as well, I thought people would wait until the book was out as well to get more of a feel of like my work and stuff if they hadn't watched my videos, etc. So we'd sold about 20 tickets, and in my head, when I was speaking to Hannah, when I was speaking to my friends, I was like, even if 20 people come, like I'd be really happy. Do you know what I mean? Like 20 people is still a lot of people, and I'd be really grateful to meet 20 of you and spend time with you and have a really cool day. So in my head, I had a target of, even if I sell half my tickets, I would be really happy and really grateful. So I hit that in December, and I was like, well, you know, it's still good, like still happy, still positive. So we'll see what the new year brings. So in January, obviously as expected, Christmas still affects people's money and still affects businesses and stuff. So I was like, okay, like this is all good. And then I let go. I was just like, again, I've got 20 people there. I'm really excited to meet these 20 people and have fun with them and like, you know, just have an epic day. And, you know, I covered all my costs at the end of the day. So I wasn't at a loss, you know, things would just be covered be covered. So I was like, you know, it's a learning curve, like you grow, you evolve each year, like more and more people will come. So I was just like, this is cool, like I'm really happy. So I let go, I relaxed, you know, same as the book. I was in that feminine flowing of whoever's meant to be there is going to be there. And as soon as I let go, as soon as I was like, wow, like I'm really grateful for these 20 people. And what I want to say as well is with followers, this is so important. So I was like very much a manifester of, I want this amount of followers on YouTube, I want this amount of followers on Instagram. Never got them because I just was controlling it. And then as soon as I let go, it happened, and I was like, oh, for God's sake. So really my message to you here is, if you are you can relate to this and you're focusing on numbers and figures and facts and statistics and stuff like that, drop the numbers. And the reason why I say drop the numbers is because numbers control us. And what I was doing by like saying like, you know, I never set the intention of having a sold out event. Absolutely not. I was just like, the people who are meant to be there will be there. And everyone was like, Emma, you're crazy. Of course it's going to sell out. And I was like, well, I don't know that. Like, I don't know. I've never done this before. So I was really just like, if I get these 20 people, that's fine. But what I was thinking of was the number 20, not 20 actual human beings sat in that room. Same with the books, same with the followers, same with a lot of the stuff in my life. When we talk about numbers, when we talk about sales, and when we talk about money as well, we're talking about a figure. We're talking about energy almost, and a figure. We're not talking about the actual human being who is on the receiving end of your work, or who are paying you, or following you, whatever. So I did this a while ago actually. Like I was, you know, my Instagram, my Facebook was growing really healthily, but my Twitter was just like very stagnant. And I was like, oh, like I get Twitter's not as popular now, but you know, it would be nice to grow it a little bit. And I have 13,000 followers on Twitter, so a lot smaller than a lot of my other platforms. And what I did was just, I Googled what 13,000 people looked like. And then I could feel like a little stadium. And I was like, wow, like that's a lot of people. So like, honestly do this, because a lot of bloggers and like influencers and even coaches I speak to like feel the comparison. They're like, oh, but I've only got like a really small amount of followers. But I heard this from Gary Vee once, and it stuck with me for life. And it was like, and this man had called up his show or something. It was like a YouTube video I watched, and he'd said, I've only got 1,000 followers. A lot of my competitors have like, you know, loads more followers, and I feel just shit. Like, why can't I grow my followers? Why isn't it happening? And Gary Vee was like, stop the comparison to start off with. You're unique, it's your own journey, it's your own brand, it is you. Like, stop comparing to other people's stuff and get back in your own lane, which I totally recommend to anybody anyway. And then what he said is, 1,000 people, you have touched 1,000 people's lives. You have influenced 1,000 people's lives, so much so they felt drawn to follow you. They felt drawn to like your content and invest in you. And that hit me, because I was like, wow, we don't think about that. We don't really think deeply about it. We see a number, we see a statistic, and especially as a blogger, like throughout my whole career, my career has been judged on numbers, on figures, on money, the whole lot. So for me, I've been conditioned to that numbers game, to that figures game. But what I wasn't realizing was, even though it was 13,000 people, that's 13,000 people's lives my Twitter has touched. So I went on from that. I then Googled my whole collective following, which I think it was like 150,000 people. And I was like, fuck me, like that's literally like a fucking gig. Like that is like what, you know, a stadium full of people, which, you know, a lot of like really famous singers would sing to or perform to. And I was like, this is what you're not understanding, because it's like virtual, it's virtual followers. You're not seeing the people sat behind the screen. You're not seeing the people actually who purchase your stuff, invest in you, invest in your work. You're seeing a figure, you're seeing a number, you're not seeing the face or the person behind that number. So I really, really encourage you, if you are stuck on that followers game, if you are stuck on that comparison game of followers, numbers, money, Google what your following looks like. Google that number. What does 100 people look like? What does 1,000 people look like? What do 10,000 people look like? And look into these people's eyes. Look into the people, the crowd you see in front of you, and think, this is my following. This is the people's lives I have touched and influenced to a point where they have decided to invest in me. They have decided to follow me and think that my work uplifts them or has inspired them in such a way that they have chosen to include me in their life. So think about that for a second. Think about how that feels to you, and how like all ego and all numbers and everything just disappears in a second, because you're like, fuck, like that's my purpose, that's my mission, and that's my goal. So after that, I obviously became super grateful and looked at the people instead of the numbers, like realized they were real life people who were there and who were investing. And I dropped it. I dropped all the manifesting of subscribers, of book sales, ticket sales, everything. I just dropped it. And I was like, the people who need to be there will be there, and it's going to be a fucking awesome day. We're going to have a great time, and it's going to be, you know, my first event. Whatever's meant to happen will happen. And as soon as I did that, the event sold out, literally. And I was like, well, thank you, universe. Like, obviously I was just like, I cried. I literally cried. I was like, Hannah, we've actually sold out. And she was like, I told you. And I was like, well, I know, but you know that thing where you're just like, you just don't know what to expect. So those are two massive things in my life where I have exceeded my own expectation. And that, like I said, has been through everything I've just said, of releasing those numbers, releasing the money aspect, releasing the ego masculine side of things, and, you know, flowing into your feminine energy, flowing into that space of numbers are numbers, but people are people. So, you know, if you are doing an event or you're selling something and 2 people come or 2 people buy your stuff, that's 2 people's lives you influenced. And Rome wasn't built in a day. Like, I keep saying this, but, you know, sustainability is key here. And I'm going to keep stressing this in all of my videos of, we're sold this fake dream of like, get rich quick, get 1 million followers, blah, 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 blah. I can teach you to like have 1 million followers and have £1 million in your bank. But that's not sustainability. Sustainability is strong foundations. And I will swear by this until the day I die, of I am grateful it's taken me 5 years to build up to the place I am today through 2 businesses. Obviously, like, I haven't been doing this for 5 years. You know, I've been doing YouTube for 4 years, but obviously my content was money saving before couponing, and then I've transitioned into this. So I am grateful for that sustainability. I'm grateful for the solid, strong foundations I have built so that it's solid, it's sustainable. So don't think that just because you're not growing at the rate that you want to grow, or even your expectations that you think you should be at aren't being met. Because remember, I was there. I was having those expectations because of society, because of how other people would grow, because of how other people's success would look like. But that wasn't how my success looked like, and that wasn't my journey. My journey was to stop controlling, stop holding the universe to ransom, and to really surrender and let that go, so that I could feel and appreciate the real meaning behind these things. You know, manifest them from the right place for the right reasons. Instead of numbers, figures, it was the people, it was the help, it was the enjoyment that I have from helping people and talking about this sort of thing. So absolutely, like, think of your sustainability, think of your solid foundations of growth, because that, there's nothing wrong with that. Look at it, relationships, anything, even houses. Solid foundations are solid walls and a solid house. So, you know, sometimes when people like really shoot to fame, or really, you know, have like their 10 minutes of fame as such, look at it, that's why it's called their 10 seconds of fame or 10 minutes of fame, whatever the saying is. And it's not sustainable. So sometimes a slower journey, or, you know, a more solid, you know, steady upheaval instead of that quick 5 minutes of fame. Is it 5 minutes of fame? I think it's 5 minutes, not 10 minutes. You know what I mean anyway? Like, the point is not the minutes, we get the point. So, you know, it's not about having that quick, you know, like I said, it's not about having a really successful book launch which goes really well and then drops off and no one buys it. It's having that slow and steady, sustainable rate of increase, of money, of, you know, wealth in all aspects of your life. Not just money, of happiness, health, everything, fulfillment. So slow and steady always wins the race. Remember that. Like the tortoise and the hare, classic story here. I'm bringing it on in. So sometimes the tortoise and the hare, like the tortoise won because he was sustainable. He took baby steps to build those solid foundations for growth. And that's what I want to stress here, of that there's no race, There's no comparison. This is your own life, your own path, your own journey, and it's not a race. So drop those numbers, drop those expectations, try it, do it from your divine feminine energy, really flow and allow yourself to, like I said, Google your followers, you know, Google whatever it is you're looking at from a numbers perspective and see the real people behind it. And then let me know how things shift for you, because it really will. It is a game changer, and it just takes that ego masculine side out of things and allows that beautiful feminine energy to come in and help you manifest exceeding your own expectations, like literally. So if I can do it, you 100% can do it, guys. So I hope this video has helped you. I've really enjoyed filming it as always. Don't forget you can join my free Law of Attraction support group over on Facebook. The link is down below, where you can join myself and other like-minded souls where we talk all things positivity and Law of Attraction. So thank you guys so much for watching my video. I appreciate all your views and likes. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new here, because I would love to see you again soon. Don't forget to leave me a comment in the comments box down below, because I reply to them all. And I will see you in my next video, which will be next week. Lots of love, guys.